All right, guys and girls, what we got here today is a s23 Ultra. But to be completely honest, this is going to be very similar to the s21, s22, the Note 20 Ultra. I mean, realistically, just about any Samsung, even the s24, um, and the s25 when they release it, right? So, as you can see, as we're going through here, um, what we're looking at is what I would suspect, kind of out in the field, this is what you would be dealing with, right? So at the store level, we have our heat mats. In most cases, we go ahead and just put it on the heat mat and leave it, generally for anywhere from 7 to 12 minutes, give or take. We come back to it, it's heated up to about 80 Celsius, maybe 90 Celsius, and we're able to separate that adhesive from the housing. Out in the field, it's a little bit different. You need to be able to bring that back glass and the mid frame up to temperature, with a very precise heat gun. So as you can see, that's what I wanted to highlight here, which is just going around the perimeter with the heat gun. And as I'm going, as you can see there, I am just continually touching it, right? My rule of thumb is if I can put my fingers on the back glass for more than a second, then it's probably not hot enough. Looks like we are about at that mark, about 2 minutes in, give or take. And you can see I'm going in with my iSesamo, which is a metal tool. Obviously, we don't want to use that for the entire job. We want to just break the barrier and then use the plastic pick. And I like to go in on the side. If you've gone through my training, then you know why. This was hot enough to continue going around with the pick. Now, I did get a little bit of resistance there, and in some cases, I might stop and reheat, but I kind of felt it. I knew that I'd be okay, so I continued. And as you can see, we got the back glass off, and immediately I want to take that old adhesive off while it's still a little warm. So that being said, I'm literally just picking at it, but as you can see, it jumped there. Sorry, I got a phone call. As you can see, I'm bracing those corners with my other thumb, to make sure that the back glass does not flex too much as I'm pulling that adhesive. So as I'm pulling it, we're just going around. I'm bracing it with my other hand, making sure that that back glass does not flex too much. And of course, it's going to break a little bit here and there. So just pull it off and continue. If you need to, you can use your tweezers for this, but really, a fingernail should be fine. Go ahead and get that off of there, and that is ready for new adhesive. So now from here, we can go to the base of the phone, or I guess the mid frame or the octa, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm doing here, I'm trying to see if the tracking on the camera is actually functioning. So I apologize for that, but that's the way it goes. One thing I learned in my years is just be prepared with all of your tools. Your bits, your spudgers, your picks, your tweezers. You want to just have everything ready to go. There's nothing like getting to a job and realizing that you don't have one of the main components, like a Phillips head screwdriver or the iSesamo tool or things along those lines. So be prepared. And as we go through, we're going to go ahead and take out each screw. Sometimes they will stay in the old plastic piece. If they do, whatever, just leave it. It's obviously better if everything comes out. That way you know if you have an extra screw. There are times that if you leave one or two screws in the plastic, but the plastic comes out, you go to put everything back in, you think that you've torqued down every single screw, but you left one that was untorqued or unscrewed, and you go to put that back glass on, and that screw is sitting just above the threshold, and you press it down because that's what we need to do at the very end. You'll crack that back glass. And there's nothing worse than going through an entire job, seeing that it was successful. At the very last second, you crack the back glass. That's like the worst conversation to have with not only your supervisors, but the customer. It's just a bad experience all around mainly because you have to reverse that repair, put everything back into the broken device, hand it back to the customer and say, hey, go ahead and call Assurion and they'll take care of you from here. So don't do that. So a good rule of thumb is take every single screw out. That way you know that every single screw goes back in. So that being said, we got all the screws out. Now we're going to go back through with our spudger, and we're just going to start looking for any exposed flex cables. As you can see, the flex cables there are going to be the NFC and the wireless charger. Once we got that off, then we'll go straight to the battery. And as you can see, I kind of just use my wrist or my thumb, and I don't kind of flick up, but I kind of flick to the side. That way it's just a very small range of motion. Because what you'll notice on the Samsungs is that there are a lot of exposed diodes and capacitors that we do not want to disturb. So that being said, we're going to go through and literally just disconnect every single thing as we kind of work our way through the main motherboard down to what we would call the sub PBA. Right now we're doing the front facing camera. And as you can see, that camera came out very easy, which means this phone has been repaired before, because normally that camera would be glued inside that frame there. So that's a pretty good indication that this phone has been repaired before, which right about now is when I would start questioning, in the event that something doesn't work, was it me or was it somebody prior to me? So that being said, we're just going to go through and make sure that we get everything out. We got the S pin out. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the SIM tray, because that sub PBA will not come out unless I remove the SIM tray. Putting my tools back. I imagine, yep, we've got our 3 screws down at the bottom of the sub PBA there. Gonna go ahead and take those out. Now those are black and they are smaller than the other ones, so you do want to keep those separate. And I imagine we have a couple more screws in the 5G antennas on the left side of the Octa there, but one thing at a time. Go ahead and go at that sub PBA kind of at an angle. Grab a different spudger if need be. We obviously want to go from the top to the bottom, because that charge port sits down in the frame a little bit. As you can see there, we got it out finally. That's the LCD connection. We're going to need to transfer that over. And from there, looks like I'm going for the 5G antenna that's in the mid frame. A lot of times there's a little bit of adhesive there, but since I know this has been repaired before, then I know that adhesive probably is not super strong, so I'm able to just pull that straight out. Normally I'd put a little bit of alcohol there and then pull it out, pulling out the main PBA. I want to go into a spot that I know does not have any capacitors that are exposed, which are going to be right around the camera. So going down at the bottom left-hand corner there, pulling out that main PBA. And here we go with the other 5G antenna. Same thing. I know that there's probably not too much adhesive on that, so I'm going to go and just pull that straight out. And realistically, oh, that's right. This must be a 22. Sorry, I said it was a 23. We are transferring over the front speaker. There's 2 screws. They are 2 different sizes, so keep those separate than all the others. Pull that out, and it looks like that is about it. But a good practice to get into, just in case there's a vibrate motor or a front-facing camera or a particular cable or just about anything, you want to pull out that new part, put it next to it, and just compare it real quick. Sometimes you have an international version. Sometimes there's one little thing that you need to transfer over. So put them next to each other and then get it all prepped. Go ahead and put the old part away because you would be surprised. Every once in a while, sometimes you will get distracted, look away, and you start putting all the components back into the broken device. I'm not saying this has happened to me. It's definitely happened to me where I've gone through the entire repair. I disassembled it, compared them, and turned around and took a phone call or something stupid and came back to it and started reassembling everything into the broken device. I went all the way through with it, put everything in, sealed it up, turned it on, flipped it over, and realized what I had done. So I know it sounds really stupid, and it is, so don't do that. Put the old part away. And as you can see, we're just going through, just reassembling. We're putting everything back in, kind of one at a time, right? Everything that came out, we go back in at about that same, in that same fashion. So whether that be, main PBA, then camera, then 5G antennas, and then sub PBA, and then, the UB cable, things along those lines. So again, this is almost identical 20s, 21s, 22s, 23s, and 24s, and then the subsequent Note series as well. Prior to that, the S10s were actually quite a bit easier. The battery was a little bit smaller, and the board, the main board and the sub were all one. So it was just one big motherboard. So a little bit different, a little bit easier. However, disassembling and reassembling, very similar process. So this is kind of an overall Samsung feel, with some of the nuances like the S20 FEs. You're going to have some coax cables. Same with the A series, some plastic backs and coax cables that you need to worry about. Optical fingerprint scanners as opposed to the ultrasonic fingerprint scanners, things along those lines. So as you kind of develop in your career, you will see some of those differences. So we've got pretty much everything back in. Now I just want to go through and just double check those connections. I'm going to connect the battery, kind of put my fingers on each connection, make sure that everything is kind of clicked down and in place. And last but not least, there'll be the battery there. Those ones are always a little bit different because it's a slight different connection than all of the others. And then of course we have our top plate, which does have a small connection on it. And as we're clicking that down in there, we just want to make sure that that little connection is clicked in as well. Like right there. There we go. I like to put, maybe 1 or 2 screws in just to kind of hold it in place, Make sure it's right where it needs to be. So there we go. There's one. Go the opposite side and go 2. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and pop that speaker down above the sub PBA along with the wireless charger. And as I let that kind of rest down in there, I'm making sure that those connections are good as well. So we already know that the battery is connected. Now it's going to be the NFC and the wireless charger. And then I'm just going to go through the very top there and just make sure that all those screws are back in before I make my way down to the speaker. A lot of times I will end up with like one extra screw. That's because Samsung likes to go a little overboard, and they'll put, 3 screws holding in the camera module versus 2, and it's all metal on metal, so very easy to miss. But that's kind of the upside to pulling every single screw out, is that if I end up with one extra, then I know, okay, I got to look for it, right? And then I'll just kind of do the whole, game where you start at the top, go left to right, and just look for that hole. Not to be confused with the microphone holes, because there are a couple in the back that look like maybe a screw could fit in there. Please don't make that mistake and screw down into a microphone, because that will ruin the mic. And yeah, that'll affect what is called your 28-day reship. So just be cautious. So overall, this repair is about 20 minutes long. And as you can see, we've got pretty much everything back in. I'm going to go ahead and pop that SIM card back in just to make sure that that sub PBA is lined up proper. The S pin will go in no matter what. And then I'm literally going to power it on before I put that back glass on. But everything else is connected. Everything else is on and in. So that being said, once I see that Samsung, I think I'm pretty good. Then what I'm going to do is pull that back glass and my rework kit. Now, pretty much the only thing that you're going to need in here, one, if you need some extra screws, they're in there. They're in that little pink bag. The little blue film, don't worry about that if you're out in the field. That's for a water resistance test. That does not apply to anybody that is in the field doing this in their car or in the customer's home or anything like that. So really the only thing that we're needing is that one piece of adhesive there. Now this particular one actually goes on the back glass. So we're going to go ahead and pull that. And the way that you can tell if it goes on the back glass or the mid frame is usually where the holes line up. So if you were to kind of take that adhesive and try to put it on the mid frame, you'll notice that the cameras would be on the opposite side. So that tells us that it goes on the back glass. And really, I like to just eyeball this stuff, get it pretty much in place. Been doing this for quite some time, so I'm fairly good. However, keep in mind that you want to make sure that there is no adhesive that's exposed. There's nothing more critical than a customer that knows that you were just inside their phone, and they will inspect every little piece. And if there's a little gap or a little adhesive sticking out, they will call Asurion and they will get a free device, and that will hit your 28-day reship. So just kind of blowing off the cameras there because it looks like there was a little bit of dust. Now on the Samsung ones, you can take a little microfiber and just tap those cameras. You don't want to rub too much. There is a little bit of a film on these things. So I'm just kind of making sure that there's no big pieces of lint or, any random stuff that happens to fall, like a piece of hair or something like that. And then I'm rubbing the outside. That way I know that the outside is clean. And then I can lightly touch the inside just to make sure that there's no big pieces of it, debris. Line up the top make sure that that's kind of flush. And as you can see with my index and my thumb, I'm making sure that the sides are flush as well. And I'm doing that kind of by touch, just gauging one side versus the other. And then once I'm comfortable, then I'm going to push down all the way around. And once that's done, I already know that the phone is on. It's probably getting some notifications while this is happening, which is a good sign. Means it's reading the SIM card, means the antennas are working. Just want to make sure that that is all the way down. And then I'm just double checking it. I personally like to peel off that plastic, because if you hand that phone back to the customer, they're going to say, well, this screen protector really sucks. Yeah, it's not a screen protector. That was just there for protection. Or they'll leave it on and it's covering up the speaker, and they'll go to make a phone call, and then you'll get a call saying, well, I can't hear anybody. Well, did you pull off that, fake screen protector? No, I didn't. Okay, do that and give it another shot. So, that being said, we are all set, guys. Good luck. If you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.